Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I hope the sun is shining where you are. It's Thursday. Welcome to Donna and Cheryl TV, keeping it real. Today, talking to you about assertiveness. Assertiveness. And I have no doubt that some of the guys here will want to know more about this too. But let's face it, ladies, this is a problem a lot of us have. We like to please. We like to just, somebody says to me at least twice a day, I don't like confrontation, and we associate being assertive with confrontation. So today, Cheryl and I want to talk real here about how you can become more assertive, what it means when we're being assertive, and how we can just start claiming some boundaries through doing so. So I hope you're going to buckle in for this one. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. And that's the reason. So we've been focusing on boundaries at the beginning of the week. Then we were talking about work boundaries. We've been talking about personal boundaries. And this is more about the how, because we see like setting boundaries as like being difficult, or it's a battle, or it's an argument. Like we
Aggressive.
build this story up in our head that setting boundaries is going to like cause some kind of conflict. But it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to have conflict. It's just about have communication.
Yes, it is. I think the reason it normally ends up in conflict, and I'd love to hear, guys, so when you think about being assertive, what does that bring up for you? And I love that we're getting called badass. Like, I can totally live with that. What does that bring up for you when you think about being assertive? What does the word mean to you? How does it make you feel? And let's start cracking some nuts. And I think the reason it's sometimes thought of as being aggressive, Cheryl, is because oftentimes when our invisible lines, these beautiful boundaries that we have that we don't communicate, are being encroached a little bit more every time, it gets to the point when actually we're quite angry and we're quite frustrated. And then we come at it, and then it's a confrontation because we tell someone, well, you took it too far now. I mean, they didn't know they were taking it anywhere because we never told them about it. Simple examples I can think of like when Neil and I moved in together, and we're all like this, right? There's certain things that we all like in our house to be a certain way. And I laugh about this all the time, like toilet roll gate. When men finish the toilet roll, then leave the toilet roll, I don't know if this is all men, it's just my husband, on the floor, just the brown empty toilet roll thing. And I'm like, who does he think is going to take it away? The fairies? Get myself really head up about it. But and there'll be a passive aggressive, sweetie, you mind, with the guy, but it's not really, we don't just sit and go in a quite neutral position. Actually, I'd really prefer it if you didn't leave them on the floor. Would you mind always making sure that when you've used it, you put it in a bin? Like, it very rarely happens like that, does it? It normally is like, who did the things picking it up? Me. All right. So then it's about me. You think, I'm just going to pick up after you? Is this how this relationship is going to roll?
It becomes more passive aggressive because, like you say, you've built it up because you haven't just had an okay conversation. Then we've stayed passive for so long, then all of a sudden we go into passive aggressive and making sarcastic comment instead of just being assertive, being clear. Like that said, just know what I want. However, when the person on the receiving end of it has got something going on for them, so if they're feeling insecure or they have low self-esteem, sometimes us being assertive they can take it that we're being aggressive or emotional or whatever, bossy, overpowering, because it's their stuff though. It's not our stuff, it's their stuff, because they're feeling insecure, or however we want to phrase it. Thomas is just saying assertive, I sometimes associate this with challenge, as if it's a bad thing, doesn't it? It has that negative connotation that it's like it's a bad thing to be assertive, where actually it's just being clear in your communication about what you want from and this always comes back to this about being from a neutral standpoint.
And so just on Thomas's point, and like challenge for me often, I know when I would go into new teams, new organizations, or even now with our clients, and we'll challenge how they're thinking, won't we, Cheryl? We'll say, is that true? Somebody will give us, they'll say, well, I can't do this because nobody really cares about my opinion. We'll say, okay, is that true? Because we're looking for evidence. We're looking for the evidence of that. And in corporate life, we would do the same, wouldn't it? People would say, well, we'll not hit that sales target, or there's no way right, well, why is that? And it's not because I think that we can, it's because I'm trying to understand what it is going on in that person's head. And sometimes that can be seen quite challenging. I think we've gone the other way with it. We don't like being challenged because we often think it's about us when it's not. It's actually about the person is trying sometimes to gain understanding of it. And we can take it in a way that it potentially wasn't intended. Like Cheryl said, if we've got our own stuff going on, right?
And I think, like growing up, like in the society that we grew up in, like, you know, in our, particularly for Donna and I's age group, when you grow up, it's like, don't be too pushy, don't be too cocky.
The 25 to 29 bracket she's talking about.
We were born in like the 80s and 90s. It's like, you know, don't be too pushy, don't be too cocky, you know, don't be too arrogant, like, don't be too overconfident. Like, we get told these things by our parents and school.
Yeah.
But when we're coming through school, that it's a bad thing to ask what you want, to be clear what you want, to get seen as being like arrogant or out of line. Breaking the rules.
We always had this with Holly, didn't we? Because if somebody gave Holly, Cheryl's daughter Holly, I'm talking about now, an order or a command or said something in school, Holly would never accept that just because a teacher or somebody with a label had said it. She would ask, challenge, she would ask about the fairness of it, about the rightness of it, about why that was a rule. And yeah, actually, and it's almost seen as disruptive, isn't it, when kids are like that? But really, like, I want Caleb to challenge when someone's telling him just to do something, unless it's me. But, you know, and I'll say to Neil often, you know, we're telling him not to answer back, but actually he is trying to find an understanding of it in his head. The fact that we're exhausted, that it's the 100th time that day, he's trying to find an understanding, but he won't just comply. He won't just do it because I've said, or Neil said. He wants to understand why it has to happen at that time, or why he can't do it in a certain way, or why he can't go on a phone call at a certain time. So
yeah,
actually,
it is actually, we see it at the time as if they're, oh God, this, that and the other, but they're just trying to get clarification of an understanding of some more information. It's probably the how, isn't it? It's not the what they're asking. It always comes back to the how. But when you're being assertive, as long as you're in a neutral standpoint, then the landing of the assertiveness should land okay.
Yeah. So should your assertive, Wendy's got a great question, should your assertive be different with an insecure person, or should your assertive be yours, if you see what I mean? I do see what you mean.
Yes.
And I think as an emotionally evolved person, if you know that somebody is particularly sensitive, then there's nothing wrong with understanding that they're coming from their patterns and paradigms and ways of thinking and map of the world, so that you can better land that message. But if you're in neutral, it's actually quite hard to be offended by a message. So the way I always think of it is, if I'm in neutral and I know that I've got no intention other than to gain clarity, I'm not doing it to try and make someone more insecure. I'm not doing it to make them have a shitty day. If I'm asking a question that I think is a fair question, I'll ask it. It's more that I am prepared that they might have a wobbly response to what I'm asking. So I sometimes ask it, assume that they'll land okay. If I can see it's not landing, I'll say, I'm happy to clarify why I'm asking that. It's because, but I wouldn't necessarily wrap them up in cotton wool when I'm asking them a question straight off the bat, if that makes sense, Wendy.
Because when somebody is insecure, like we were just talking about earlier, they can take you being assertive as them attacking them. So they feel like attacked, and then they feel the need to defend, when actually that's not where it was intended. That's not where it was coming from.
Yeah.
But I think as long as you are aware that actually that they are insecure, and like Donna said, like they've taken that as it's just reclarification really of why you're asking whatever it is you're asking. It's not that you're not trying to attack them or this, that, and the other. It's just you want to know the answer to X, Y, and Z, whatever that may be.
Absolutely. And I see this a lot, especially in corporate. I see questions not being asked and decisions not being made because we are, you know, afraid of the response that we're going to get from some people. And, you know, as leaders of our families, as leaders in business, it's our job to make decisions. And to make decisions, sometimes you have to assert yourself, you have to challenge and ask questions. You need to understand what all the pieces of the game are before you make that decision a lot of the time, or at least what 80% of the players are doing. So for me, as long as the word that we keep using is intent, like your intention is very, very powerful. If your intention on asserting yourself is to make somebody else feel like shit, then you absolutely shouldn't be having that conversation. If your intention is to gain clarity, gain understanding, to find a way forward, to find a way of communicating together and coming together on it, you're not going to have as much of an issue as you probably perceive you have when you're imagining the conversation. However, what I also want to say is, if you've had a particularly hot relationship with someone and fiery in terms of there has been challenge and confrontation in the past, and maybe you haven't handled it in the best way, just because now all of a sudden you're in neutral, somebody isn't going to come back to you in neutral, because in their head they'll be playing through all the conversations where it has ended up in a bun fight.
Absolutely.
So it's about you being aware again of their paradigm, of their map of the world. What will their patterns be telling them? Because what has the pattern been with you to date?
Yeah. And I think Yvette, that's a good point about challenging the rules at school. And like my daughter Holly was exactly the same, like because she genuinely didn't understand. And when, some teachers aren't very good at their jobs, in all walks of life, some people aren't very good at their jobs. So she was quite happy to call them out if she thought something was going on it didn't go down very well, but hey, that's another story. So Yvette's making a good point there though, about softening assertiveness, rather than just doing it from a neutral and not preempting responses. Because sometimes when we soften assertiveness, it doesn't come across as being authentic. And then we end up dancing around the houses, like to get your point across, you're like teetering around the outskirts of it rather than just going in, being clear, saying what it is you want to say from a neutral point. There's no emotion attack. Like neutral means you're not like highly emotional, you're not like on a negative, you're just literally coming from it from a neutral point and saying whatever it is you've got to say, rather
and
than
message can get lost. Sorry, Cheryl. When you're saying that, that's the point. Is that you're teetering around the houses, you're putting flowers on it, and and painting the sky for them, and trying to like make them feel okay. The message gets lost.
They're not even sure what is that you're trying to say.
Yeah, and then you're frustrated that what you wanted doesn't transpire, and then you go in hard when actually they probably didn't hear the message because they were listening to all the flower shite. Yeah. So, Cheryl's neutral. Learning to be neutral is so important, and it's much easier to be neutral when you're not emotionally heavily attached to it, and you get heavily emotionally attached to it when you're frustrated, when you come from a place of anger, when you're coming from a place of why can't you just do it, if you've not asserted yourself early on enough in the show.
And what I would say with that is choose the time when you're going to have the conversation. So if you're in the middle of a debate or you're feeling emotional about something, that isn't the right time to then be assertive, because that's when it comes in aggressive. So if you want to have a conversation with somebody about boundaries, it's not in the moment when they've just overstepped your boundaries and you're feeling like this, like you want to kill them, like your piss is boiling. You're not going to be able to be effectively assertive. It's about coming back to the conversation at a different time when you're in a neutral point and then being assertive. It never works in the moment because emotions are flying around.
You don't have to pretend that you're okay with it. You can say, I'm actually really hurt or upset or disappointed at what you just did. We'll have a chat about it, but not now. You don't have to pretend that you're okay with it or anything like that. But having it from a calmer place is always a much better thing. You know that with kids, don't you? If you go in up there and they're up there, like no good will come from that. Like you've got to bring yourself down a good few notches. And it's always going back to, explaining what you want, explaining how certain behavior makes you feel. So it's about you, your feelings, and owning that. Explaining what you ideally need and asking them what they need to do that, because sometimes what we're asking for somebody isn't able to give. So it's about understanding from their point of view what the issue is around that too. It's always about the two-way communication
and consistency. So if you've recognized there's a lack of a boundary in a work relationship or in a family relationship, you've then approached it, had the assertive conversation coming from a neutral standpoint, and then the boundaries overstepped again, you have to then come back to it. So you can't just like implement a boundary and then it doesn't get the person oversteps it again, and then you just, you forget about it. It has to be consistent, because the other person, this is news to them. Remember, we've probably had this boundary in our own head, so haven't even previously said anything to them, have we? So they don't even know it exists. Then we've had the conversation, so it's just about making sure that is consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like with children, if you tell them they've got to go to bed at 7 o'clock, but then the next night let them off, and then you tell them, it's exactly the same with us as grown-ups. We like that framework, we like that structure, we like to know where we stand, even if we're not aware of that at a conscious level. So really make sure, like, are you being consistent? And when you know, what we'd love you to do and invite you to do is the area of your life where you've got the biggest gap in terms of your boundaries because you're not asserting yourself, whether it's with a particular, it's work, it'll be a particular relationship at work. With that particular relationship, what's one small step or one small conversation you can start to have? It might be that you're working till 8 or 9 o'clock every Friday night, and it might be having a conversation that says, actually, it's really impacting my personal life, and I know that wasn't for your intention. It's me. I've been doing it. My accountability is absolutely, I've been allowing it to happen. From now, I'm going to make sure that I'm logged off at 5 o'clock so I can have some quality family time. If there's anything you need me to pick up, if you could just make sure that I know about it by close of play on the Thursday, to make sure that I can do everything for you that I need to do. If it's a conversation with your boss, run that conversation through in your head, talk it through with someone who you know is a really good sounding board to check for any blaming or finger pointing or temper, or if you know you're going to get emotional because the conversation is a long time coming. Start small. Think about where something small could have a really big difference on you and your life and the quality of how you're feeling and your well-being, and start having that conversation. Rehearse it with somebody that you know, so that you neutralize yourself, and then go and have it for real.
Absolutely. Word.
Yeah, we had a conversation. We had a client who was in our group programs who, has been really burnt out, has been having a really challenging time, and knew she had to have a really challenging conversation with her boss. And just by following those exact principles, was able to sit down, was able to articulate really clearly where she was at, articulate really clearly what she needs, and without the emotion. And honestly, you feel so much more powerful when you're able to do that, guys. That's the kind of work that you need to be doing to move yourself and your well-being forward.
Absolutely. Let's get assertive. Assertive is a good thing. It's a good thing when it's done right, from the right place at the right time, from a neutral standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And to create the life of your dreams, this is one of the qualities. You don't, and again, I want you to think of this like confidence. You don't wake up and all these people are just naturally assertive. People work. This is a skill that you can learn.
Yeah.
If I can do it, who was the ultimate people pleaser. And trust me, you've no idea the lengths I've gone to as a young girl to please people. But if you could just know that, like, it is a skill that you can learn and do, and follow what we're teaching you, really simple steps. Get someone to help coach, you'll make huge differences. And one thing that we've got to really help you with it is, whether you've watched it before, I want you to watch it again. I want you to watch it until you're applying every single of the 7 steps in your life daily and consistently, is the imposter syndrome masterclass. Because the 7 steps we give you in that to step into your power, as Yvette's just said, because if you're listening to your inner critic, you're going to find it really difficult to assert yourself. Managing your inner dialogue allows you to do this and to do it, feel good about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll pop the links. Yes. So we'll pop the links in here where we can, and then we'll pop the other ones in later.
Stepping into our power. Damn right.
Amazing.
Damn right. I love the
rehearsing your neutrality. Oh,
sorry, Choco.
Rehearsing your neutrality with a closed sounding board is brilliant. Yes, do it. It gets easy. It will become easy, rather than if you've built up a belief that something is difficult and it's a challenge and it's conflict, it's not something you're going to be looking forward to do. So it's just about changing that belief. And you'll realize that it's easy to do once you've mastered the art.
Well, when you focus on how you're going to feel afterwards, when you get the thing that you want, it makes the conversation a whole lot easier, doesn't it? Don't focus on the conversation, focus on the result. Yeah. Right.
Thank you. Have a fabulous rest of the day this Thursday.
Sorry, Cheryl. What I was just going to say really quickly is there'll be a post over in the soul system. So this is where we start getting accountable. Don't just come and have this talk and shop and go, oh, that's nice. Get in the soul system now. There'll be a post in the next 5-10 minutes asking you what's the step you're going to take to become more assertive. What have you taken away from this call? And I want you to all get accountable on that, even if you're watching it on replay, because we've got to start taking action, not just listening. Okay, let's become the best version of ourselves. Sorry, Cheryl.
That's it. Keeping it real.
Keep it real.
Enjoy the sunshine.
Have fun, guys.
Bye.